Hi, my name is Kiera, and this is Kiera of All Trades on Fresh Factory TV. Today, we are going to talk about levee and preservation professions because it is hurricane season. There's a lot moving around in the tropics. Prayers out to everyone who has been affected by any of the tropical storms, people who are looking out for those upcoming hurricanes. But this brings to mind in 2005, New Orleans, Louisiana had the largest to date financial effects from a hurricane. In 2005, in case anyone wasn't aware or if they don't remember, maybe if they weren't even born in 2005, then Hurricane Katrina in 2005 affected 80% of New Orleans. It was a hurricane that was a Category 5, which on the scale is the largest, that came into New Orleans. And it eventually weakened into a Category 3, but it caused $1 billion worth of damages, 1,800 deaths or more along the Gulf Coast, which is Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, those kinds of areas. And unfortunately, it caused lots of damage to a lot of poor areas, neighborhoods that were populated with people of color. And even to this day, there's still lots of effects that can be seen. If you drive through the city of New Orleans, you'll see blue tarps still on roofs and lots of buildings that have not been rebuilt, and just the cost associated with the rebuilding process, and most definitely the disheartening part of having all of these things affect one's life caused lots of people to relocate, whether it was for a short period of time or for the long term, from New Orleans. And of course, people always come back and visit, but it definitely has left a stain into the psyche of all the people who were affected. Now, currently this episode is being recorded in 2022 as we're looking at the tropics and all of the weather patterns that are coming up. So what I wanted to cover today were just some careers that were part of the recovery process that have to do with levees in the preservation professions. So again, thank you so much for coming to the show. My name is Kiera. This is Kiera of All Trades. Every Sunday, I try to bring you information about professions that you may or may not know about, whether you're an adult, whether you're a child, whether you're looking to turn your career around, change your life for the better, or just get information about things that you might need. So specifically New Orleans and other locations that were on the locations to do with the coast, or anything that's affected with holding back water, use a levee system, LEVE system, which is something that if you live in a place that's not on the coast, you probably never even heard of. It wasn't something that I knew well about until after Hurricane Katrina. But it's a system in water through swamp that will protect thousands of people from hurricane storm surge. So that's as the water rises, there is a system in place of walls, etc., that is supposed to hold back water from coming into specifically New Orleans. And New Orleans is built like a bowl. So once the water comes in from on high and comes down, it has a tendency to take a lot of structures and things with it along the way. So now, as a recovery effort throughout the times, which they had it beforehand, but it most definitely has had a lot of dollars moved towards the systems and improving them since Hurricane Katrina. They have environmental restoration projects that are rebuilding the coast and then preserving the natural resources that go along with it. So I want to talk about some vocations and some jobs and some careers that are related to being able to preserve those levee systems and all of the natural resources that go with it. So today we're going to call this levee and preservation professions. All right. So these are a lot of science and engineering type positions that people who may not have a traditional background in STEM might be interested in. There's a lot of different parts that you can participate in, but specifically the levee system is something that a lot of people here have a lot of interest in, so I just want to talk about it. So lock and dam operator is the very first position that we're going to talk about. So lock and dam. It's a situation where you could become a trainee in the facility where you operate, obviously under close supervision, the valves, the controls, the gates that go with opening and closing different parts of the walls and the protection mechanism that are in place in order to, again, protect the city from incoming storm surge, which is just a way of saying like high water or larger than normal water that is potentially in a situation where it can affect the city. So there's a person or several people whose job it is to, on a regular basis, open and close different parts of those doors or gates or walls in order to let traffic through. So when there's not a storm coming, then that barrier is still there, but it still needs to be opened and closed in order to maintain function of the waterway. So a lock and dam operator would be a person who is trained to be able to open and close those different walls, valves, etc., in order to let traffic through, in order to even open and close it when it's time for maintenance, to be able to direct water in one direction or another at any given time. Next, a lock operator is a person who is responsible for the safety mechanism. Okay, so if you work in different kinds of areas, maybe even if you work in a chemical plant or something like that, there's a person who is responsible for making sure that everyone knows what's going on safety wise. When you are a lock operator, you are the one who's ensuring that the safety component is taken care of, that it's closed, that it's locked, that it's secure, and along the way, those people who need to open and close each of those areas, they're going to know who all is responsible for what area, and they're going to coordinate their efforts. So that was the lock and dam operator, and then also the traditional lock operator. So they again operate the electronic gate controls to open and close the gates at one of the lock chambers, and then they operate electronically controlled tow haulage units that move the barges in and out of the lock chamber. And for anybody who doesn't know what a barge is, because I didn't know what a barge was at a given time, it is a vessel, a water vessel that is going to come in and out of a location to sometimes pick up equipment from a certain docking area, maybe from a business, maybe from the local docks for the city, etc. Next, there is a construction control inspector. So we've talked about inspectors on another episode, but basically inspectors are the ones that are making sure that the job is getting done to spec. So if this is a construction control inspector, this person is a person who is local to the job site and works as a resident inspector on a lot of the civil works construction sites that are kind of higher than normal complexity. So that means that this construction control inspector will need to know how jobs are done in general, how these situations should look. And then they're going to be able to go through and know enough about each of the positions that are supposed to be done to ensure that they're done in a way that is going to be complete, to ensure that when it's all said and done, all the pieces go together and you're getting the exact result of the construction project that you're looking for. Having a inspector is one of those positions that is necessary because sometimes, even if you're doing a job for a very long time, if there's safety components that are involved, it is a possibility that you've been doing the job so long, you've been doing this position for so long, that you may overlook something that goes along with someone else's position. So inspectors are not ones who are working on the job site on a day-to-day basis that are putting in those efforts to make something look a certain way or perform a certain way. What they're doing is almost coming in as an outsider on every project and ensuring that it's done properly by giving a cold eyes or fresh eye perspective and inspecting to ensure that things are done properly. So again, that is a construction control inspector. And for any of these projects that require multiple functions, multiple job types, multiple things being done, this person's job is to ensure that everything is done to quality, to spec, to ensure that the outcome is what you're looking for. Next is a drill rig operator. This is like, I used to think this was like the funnest job ever until I realized how much work it is. So a drill rig could be anything. It could come from a lot of different industries. So a drill rig is, I don't know if you ever seen the boats, but they have boats. They have sometimes actually after they use their boat to get to it, it is a station that they make in the middle of the ocean that allows them to pinpoint a location. So if you ever work for like an oil and gas company, if you ever work for any of these kind of companies, you'll be familiar with what a drill rig is. But essentially, there is a location that this group or company is looking to access that's down in the ocean. In order to get to this location, you'll need to drill down. So a drill rig operator is, sometimes people call them roughnecks, sometimes they have all kinds of names, but these guys operate the tools and the mechanisms that actually get all the pieces together to drill down into the ocean in order to find the location of whatever it is they're looking for. Sometimes they're looking for a specific mineral. Sometimes they're looking for oil and gas. Sometimes they're looking for, it just depends. But this person is the person who's working above ground with the actual drill rig, which is like a big screwdriver or like a big drill. Well, it's a drill, right? So they have different kinds of parts and pieces that go on it depending on what depth they're going to. So maybe they need a diamond drill bit to go on to some part that's really, really deep. Maybe they need different kinds of width or lengths of drill bits in order to get to the position that they're looking for. So they have this drill rig operator who works with a team to get all the pieces on and off. So do they need to build it up into 3 different pieces and then drill down? Then there's going to be a drill rig operator that's going to help get those pieces on and off and then get it on down to the bottom of the seat. Fun. Sometimes it's a dangerous job also. If you look at any kind of historical data, you will see that sometimes the reason why they get paid so much is because it's sometimes a dangerous job. You know, things can go wrong on any position, and sometimes there's just a method to how it has to be done specifically in order to keep people safe. So anybody who's ever been affected by any of those situations, you're in our thoughts and prayers. So, next position is engineering tech. Engineering techs are in this specific position to do with preservations of the levees and all of the surrounding groups. They specifically have to prepare things like geotechnical drawings. And the reason why this is okay. So I just told you about how it works if you are a drill rig operator. You got to drill down to a certain depth in order to get to whatever it is that you're trying to get to. The problem is this. If I'm just on a boat, or if I'm just on a rig, or if I'm just on a location in the middle of the sea, I don't know what's down there. But a person who is an engineering technician does. They prepare drawings that show you, okay, so here we are on top of the water. This is what it looks like here on top of the water. There's just air. And then next we have water, and water goes down to a certain length and depth, and then we have sand, and then sand goes down to a certain depth, and then after that we have all the different layers of the earth that we need to drill down to. And that's what they do. They prepare those geotechnical drawings in order to give a deeper understanding for people like the designers and people who are operating those drill bits, in order to help them understand where things are located so that they can make a good plan and follow through in order to get to what they're trying to get to. This is so much fun. Next, a hydrologic technician. So this person performs or assists in the performance of hydraulic and hydrologic studies. So sometimes people go to school for certain things and they're like, oh man, I'm gonna really be like, doing something super duper cool. This reminds me of people who go to school for like marine biology. People who go to school for marine biology always think they're gonna be like scuba-ing really deep in the ocean and like swimming with the fishies and touching all the sea turtles. And then when the rubber hits the road, the real studies end up being in things like hydrologic type arenas, where what they're doing is they are creating studies so that they can evaluate the meteorologic data and the hydrologic records and sedimentation data. So sediment is like the sand, right? And then meteorologic is obviously like the weather. And then the hydraulic reports are to do with the water and what they're made out of and all this kind of stuff. So this person who has studied these types of deals would be probably more of a hydrologic engineer, where this is a technician that would assist them. So if you have this level of interest and are willing to do the data studies in order to find out what they need to do, what they need to expect in order to get to whatever they're trying to get to, then this will be a cool job for you. And next, a land surveyor. We talked about land surveyors when we talked about jobs in real estate. You can go back and look at that episode. Very, very interesting. So if you want to buy a house, if you want to do positions in real estate, that was a great episode. But this is the same thing. So what you're thinking about in a smaller scale by buying real estate is the same thing for a land surveyor. So they work in collaboration with engineers, technicians, and other professionals for project development efforts that emphasize technical geospatial engineering solutions. It's the same thing. So that's just a fancy way of saying they're telling you what location we're looking for, what is in it, what all needs to be taken into consideration. They're creating maps the same way. They're giving them the area of where they're working from. They're telling them what's in this area. Is it rocks? Is it this? Is it that? How high is each area? Is it flat? Does it have this many degrees? What are all of the parts of the map that need to be put in this area? And then they're actually creating sometimes a CAD drawing, which is a computer aided design drawing that shows you in the 3D what this looks like on a computer. So you would be able to show someone the depth of each of these very intricate pieces of the landscape on a 3D drawing so that they could really understand without having to actually physically go to the location every time. So a land surveyor does have different levels to it. We've talked about it in a real estate, in a residential real estate type arena, and now we're talking about it in more of a larger scale when it comes to doing different projects that are to do with the levee system and preservation, and this is kind of like on a bigger scale, but same thing. Next, geologist. So geologists deal with minerals. They deal with all the things that are in the earth. So what they tell you is this is what is in the earth. This is what it's made out of. A lot of times they tell you how long it's been there, how it was created. So they tell you, you know, several thousand years ago, there was a layer of rock here. And then throughout the course of this much time, it got compressed and then it turned into this mineral now. And then during the next, you know, thousands of years, there was water here and then the water had salt in it. They tell you the whole thing. So geologists are very, very cool at being able to explain these things by creating these geological engineering reports. So it's a very specific job because what they're looking to do is to solve problems. Sometimes the problem is, how do we keep this area from eroding because it's going to rain? How do we keep this area from collapsing because it has a lot of weight on it? Geologists are just people who have a very deep understanding about minerals, about the underlayment of the land, and then what is necessary to solve the problems that whatever group comes to them with, whether it's keeping it, whether it's maintaining it, whether it's accessing things in it, whether it's to solve any of those problems. Geologists do that. Next is a survey technician. Technician. The word technician just means the person who's actually conducting these tests with or alongside of or under the supervision of whomever else. So if it's a geologist technician, if it's a whomever technician, they are helping to conduct these studies or get the data, etc., under the supervision of this group or this person or this specific position. So this is a survey technician. So a survey technician is a person who connects, collaborates, calibrates, tests, troubleshoots, and operates all electronic survey equipment. And surveying equipment is, you've seen these guys. You've seen these guys on the side of the road. They have the like orange camera thingy, and they're sitting at the corner, and they look like they're using the camera. They're like shooting it across the street. See, those guys are doing surveys of different areas, and the technician is the one who's making sure that all of the equipment works. They're looking at the data and the reports that come from those different pieces of equipment. And they are most definitely using those instruments, and they are able to explain it to someone else. They're out there actually in the field. That's why you see them if you're driving, you know. And they set up those little stations, and they do all the things that are required to collect the data. See, those guys, as the technicians, know how to do all those things, and then they bring whatever is required to get the information or the data in. And of course, we've already talked about what data is, and essentially data is just a piece of information. And this means that it can be brought in any kind of location, any type, using any type of equipment, etc. Main thing is they find out how to use the equipment in order to get the information. They go out, they set it up, they use it. Then they know how to retrieve the information from this equipment. And then once they've done that, they collect all of this information from all these different pieces of equipment and create a package, and then they're able to send it on. In this instance, it would be to like the lead surveyor, so that they can look at all this information and create things like that 3D CAD report that we talked about. But of course, they're working together. Earlier, I should have mentioned this was a lock and dam equipment mechanic. I'm guessing you don't think that any of this stuff ever gets messed up, but it does. Sometimes it does, and especially if it's to do with water, if it's a lock and dam, I mean, like, things corrode, things get stuck, things get grains of sediment in it, or grains of sand in it, and they don't work properly, or any of the things. There's the electronic problems, and sometimes this gate works and the other gate doesn't work. So there needs to be a mechanic who knows about how all these things operate and is able to do things like communicate their message to the operators, who can ensure their safety. This is a good example. This is a situation where if they're talking to the lock and dam operators, they need to be able to communicate that they need access to this specific area during this specific time, and they are ensuring that they communicate this information forward to the lock operator, because the lock operator is going to make sure that they are isolating these areas, that no one else is just going to be opening it up during this time, that this mechanic is taking care of their business and ensuring safety. Yeah, this whole thing is just full of jobs that people are doing that is super important, that people may not have ever heard of, which is why I'm covering them on Kiera of All Trades. During this hurricane season, levees are very important. It's not just necessarily in New Orleans, but New Orleans is a place where we all were educated about the levee system and what it does to hold back water and why it's so important. So yes, this is Kiera of All Trades on Fresh Factory TV. Today's episode was called Levees and Preservation Professions, and I got super in depth in some of these areas, because as you start learning about different occupations, you'll notice that it's similar type of occupations, just in different arenas, because they serve a different capacity, like the output, but it's the same thing. So as you go into your future of deciding what it is that you want to do, or if you are in a certain position right now and you're thinking, oh, I might not like where I am, you can take this information that I'm giving you to kind of lead you in the right direction, to say, well, maybe I can use the skills that I have and just pivot in a different area where I can use those skills, but then just be in a better environment for me. Maybe if I want to move, maybe if you always wanted to move to a place like New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama, or something like that, and you have these kinds of skills, these are things that you can bring forward to those correct organizations that would really appreciate your experience. That's it for today. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Please be sure to come back every Sunday, 7 p.m. for a new episode. I have just got so much to share, and I can only do it for a few minutes at a time. So please come back every Sunday, 7 p.m. Thank you so much for all the ways that you support. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Come to the YouTube channel. Listen to this in an audio fashion on every audio platform that I can think of to put it on. Also go to the full-length episodes on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and go to freshfactory.com. And you can watch all these episodes, listen to every episode, and get as much information that I have to give you. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Again, my name is Kiera. This is Kiera of All Trades. Bye.